I'm Chairman President Club and Paul Harris Call. One important announcement, please, silence your phones. Providing invitation to Cindy Cardell, Vice President of CBA with the Harding Szymanski and Company, ensure the Finance Committee and also Paul Harris Call.
Will you please bow your head with me? Let us pray silently together, each of us according to our own individual beliefs. As we gather here today as members of Rotary, we pray that we are ever mindful of the opportunities to render our service to fellow citizens and to our community, keeping in mind always the enduring values of life, exerting our efforts in those areas and on those things upon which future generations can build with confidence. Let us continue to strive to make a better world. Let us offer thanks for our food, blessings for one another and for those absent friends. Let us be a source of hope for those in need and contentment for those who are lonely. Amen.
Thanks, Steve. Enjoy the leading the pledge of the four-way test is Molly Smith, Director of Mission Advancement at Archdiocese of Louisville.
Thank you, President Kevin. Fellow Rotarians, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do.
Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and have friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thanks, Lloyd. Time for guests, please introduce your guests back for the mic is over there. Introduce your guests with their name, company, and tell the organization. And guests, when you introduce this, please stand.
Good afternoon, President Kevin. Deline Taylor, Executive Director of the club. I have two guests to introduce today. One is Kent Hall, who is a retired Chief Deputy with the Jefferson County Clerk's Office. Welcome, Kent. And Scott Brown is a Rotarian visiting us from the Rotary Club of Milwaukee, and he is a Director of Continuous Improvement for Church Mutual Insurance. Welcome, Scott.
Good morning, President Kevin. My guest today is my husband, Dr. Dan Arnold. He's recently retired, and I'm glad to have him be able to join you today.
Hi everybody. I am past District Governor, Rotary International, and I am also Arch Club Society member. Arch Club Society, majority of you know, that is the Rotary Foundation invented by Arch Club in 1917. President of Rotary International started that. We from India, the Rotary Club of Gobi, District 3203, in southmost place of India. We have in our district 5,000 members. In India, we have 40 districts, Rotary district, and a population of over 145, that means 14,100 members in India. We are the second largest giver for Rotary Foundation after USA. I was Rotary Governor and Rotary International President Shirish was an Indian in 2021-22. Last year, my colleague governor was district governor, and Jennifer Jones is the Rotary International President. So, my club, Rotary Club of Gobi, has 105 members. We started in 1970. I am a Rotary member from 1984. So I am a 39-year-old Rotarian. Normally in India, we joined Rotary at the age of 25, 30. But I am saying here, you all Rotarians joined after 50 or 60. We are most enthusiastic Rotarian. I am one of the Rotarians from India. We pledge to support the Rotary Foundation and as well as Rotary projects. Actually, we, after a very long time for the past 20 years, we are also donating to other countries. We are not only receivers, we have now become a giver. So any doubt regarding our Rotary activities, you can ask. You can help to understand my English.
Other guests? We also
Do you
want
want to go up there for a flag? Kevin has a flag to present to you.
India are really phenomenal. We do a lot of projects with them. But they do a lot of global projects with clubs from all over the world. I visited India years ago. In fact, some of you in this room were born there, not too many. But I did make it in Southern Barve. It's an interesting country and very dynamic people. The ones that come to the States are extremely successful, very dynamic, and just make a difference. Now I'd like to introduce Rick Harnett. This is going to take some time. I'm going to tell you some of the stuff we do with our club. That takes a while. He's Assistant District Governor. Chair of the District International Service Committee, Vice Chair of our Interact Club Committee, Lifetime Service Award honoree, and major donor. So welcome.
Thank you, President Kevin. It is a real honor to present to you all our guests, 9 guests from El Salvador. This is part of a Rotary Friendship Exchange, trading visits from members of one district to another district. This is our 3rd Rotary Friendship Exchange that we have done. The first was to India in 2019. And ours got started in January of 2020 when several of our Rotarians from Bowling Green and Clinton and Louisville and other clubs went to El Salvador and had a wonderful time being hosted there. But then COVID intervened and we could not have the reciprocal visit until this year. This spring we had a visit from New Zealand and sent several of our members there as well. We have plans for a visit from Western England next year, which should be fun. But for now, I would like to introduce the leader of this delegation from El Salvador, past District Governor Tito Mancia, who has hosted Mariel and me several times, and whom we consider a warm and wonderful friend.
Hello, my family and Rotary of Kentucky. It's an honor to be here. It's a privilege here representing all the community of El Salvador. That thanks to you, we express our deepest gratitude to all the distinguished members of Rotary Club of Kentucky. Your generosity and commitment for the humanitarian aid had a profound impact in our life of many families of El Salvador. The work that Rotary clubs do around the world is a testament of human solidarity and kindness over the years. We have proven to be a true ambassador of change, bringing hope, assistance, and support to many communities that has many needs. Your tireless work and dedication to humanitarian causes like ours not only enriches us, but also inspires us to work together for a better world. The aid that we have received from clubs from Kentucky has transformed the reality of many communities of El Salvador, from clean water, sanitation projects, to education and health programs. Each effort has made a difference in people's lives. Thank you to your support. We have been able to improve the quality of life for our citizens, providing the opportunity that our community never expected to have. I want to emphasize that you have not only provided material and resources, but you also have shared your knowledge and expertise. Your collaboration has empowered our community to face challenges more efficiently and sustainable. Your dedication and education in any community has developed and left a permanent mark in our hearts and our country. Through your generosity, we have learned that solidarity knows no border. Humanitarian is a great family to support each other in times of needs. You, the Rotary of Kentucky, have been a true inspiration for us, and your commitment to make a better workplace encourages us to strive and even work harder in our own path for a better future. On behalf of all the people that has touched your support, I want to express our profound gratitude to your generosity and brightness of life and giving hope to those who need it most. We know that your work doesn't stop here, and we look forward to continue to collaborate for a better future projects, strengthening our community and build a fairer and more compassionate world. Once again, thank you to all the Rotary from Kentucky. Your commitment of humanity and believe in us for becoming agents of positive changes in the world. Together, we can continue to make a significant difference in people's lives and build a better future. Family of Kentucky, we create hope in the world. Thank you, and we would like to present also all the members. We are here, 3 different platforms in El Salvador, and I would like to present the couples that are with us. Please, Hernan Gonzalo Duran, come over here. We were going to meet some. Come over here. My wife Sylvia. Please, Marco. And his wife. Also Oscar. Where is Oscar? So we were maybe pursuing flats. Thank you to having us, and God bless all United States families. Thank you. The 3 clouds. We have 3 runners for you. And one more thing, thanks to leadership of Rick and his wife, made possible this interchange, this brand interchange, and we hope to have you in El Salvador. We will treat you well. We like parties, and I would like to invite you to my birthday party next January. The boss has to be here.
Yeah, the boss. All right, somebody look here first. All right, you got it? Okay, all right.
It's actually a very meaningful exchange because we do so many projects, service projects with El Salvador. And Rick Carter and Mary, I think they have some, there was some residents and they spent a lot of time in Central America. Now I'd like to invite Ashley Brower, founder and CEO of Max Strategic Communications, chair of the Speakers Committee, co-chair of the Leadership College Committee, and 2023 Rotarian of the Year, to the podium to introduce today's speaker.
So many of you know that Alzheimer's research is near and dear to my heart. I diagnosed Alzheimer's several years ago and I'm able to benefit annually to raise money for research. So it is really a great honor for me to be able to introduce our speakers today. Dr. Rick Cooper is a behavioral neurologist practicing at the Norton Neuroscience Institute, where he serves as Chief of Adult Neurology and Director for the Memory Center. He's been involved in the field of memory disorders for 25 years, serving as primary investigator of numerous clinical trials. Dr. Shirish Barve is the Chief Research Scientist at Norton Neuroscience Institute and Professor of Medicine, Pharmacology, and Toxicology at UofL Medical Center. He is also the Associate Director of the University of Louisville Alcohol Research Center and Director of the Hepatobiology and Toxicology Center. I told you these words are going to get me. And it gets worse. Dr. Barve has recently established an integrated metagenomics and metabolomics core that provides high-quality microbial structure and function data that can be integrated with the probiotics, interventional, and clinical outcomes research. He's going to have to explain well all of that. Please welcome Drs. Cooper and Barve.
Thank you all for having me here. I came at an odd time in my career to Louisville almost 3 years ago, and it has just been an absolute dream being here, and I appreciate you all having me here today. I'll speak pretty briefly and then turn it over to my more intelligent partner here. But we're approaching an important anniversary in my field. It's on November 3rd in 1906 that Professor Alzheimer reported for the first time the disease that ultimately bore his name, Alzheimer's disease. He described a 50-year-old woman named Frau Augustine that had progressive paranoia, memory impairment, and confusion. He presented this at a meeting of the Southwest German psychiatrists in Tübingen, Germany. It really didn't get much attention at the time, and it didn't get much attention for decades after that. It was thought that this was a relatively rare and maybe not very important disease. And then in the 70s and into the 80s, we started realizing that this is not just a rare form of dementia in people under the age of 65, but in fact it's a remarkably prevalent illness. And in fact, we are now facing a tsunami as the numbers just continue to explode. Currently, there are 6.7 million people in the U.S. thought to have Alzheimer's disease or related condition. In Kentucky, that's 75,000. In Indiana, that's 110,000. And it's really growing rapidly. And until recently, our ability to treat this condition was pretty limited. Alzheimer's disease, many of you may know, is an insidiously progressive illness. Often begins with forgetfulness, problems with short-term memory, progresses over time, may involve language, our ability to come up with words, our ability to navigate, our orientation, our ability to do day-to-day activities. But what causes it? And the leading hypothesis has been something called the amyloid hypothesis. And it says simply this: we develop high levels of a protein in the brain called beta amyloid. That starts to deposit, that starts to clump as plaques in the brain. That leads to disruption of the connections between neurons. These are called synapses. That leads to something called tau pathology. That's where the tangles come. So when you think of Alzheimer's disease, you think of amyloid plaques and hyperphosphorylated tau tangles. And then ultimately leads to all the things that we see in Alzheimer's disease. Well, if that's true, what can we do about that? And again, up until recently, not much. But excited to tell you, we, I think, are on really the front end of a revolution in our field. There are now therapies aimed at removing amyloid from the brain. We've tried this for really since the beginning of my career. It failed, but within the last couple of months, we had a full approval of a medicine called lecanemab. It removes amyloid from the brain, and in doing that, it seems to slow down the progression of this disease by about 30%. Now, 30% is not where any of us want to be. We want to be at 100%. But that's a great start. Another medication is coming out, probably in January, called donanemab. And it is hard to say whether it is more effective or not than lecanemab. But there are some really intriguing results about it. With donanemab, if we were able to pick the right people early in the disease course, and I don't mean to get too lost in the weeds here, but if people have amyloid, but they don't have too much of tau, that next step, if we get people in that window, it may slow the disease by as much as 50 or 60%. Now we're really talking something impressive. So that's pretty exciting. Still not 100%. And Alzheimer's disease is not going to be as simple as just removing amyloid. It's going to be a lot more complicated than that. But I want you to just imagine, what if we can do a better job at identifying people at risk for Alzheimer's disease? It is now widely believed that Alzheimer's disease begins 20 years before we have symptoms. So what if we can identify those people that have Alzheimer's disease really before, in a sense, they have Alzheimer's disease, before they have any symptoms? What if we can identify those people? What if we can treat them more effectively? What if we can come up with the other factors that really improve their response to treatment? Is it possible in the next few years that we can make this all history? We can all make this a memory. Well, to do that, you don't need people like me. I described to somebody once, I'm a simple country memory doctor. I can do a pretty good job with the tools we have, but we need scientists. We need basic scientists. We need translational scientists, people that can help us identify those steps so that then we can intervene before anyone has any symptoms and we can really reverse this disease. And I'm really excited to be at a place where we're starting to do that. And that's why I said I'm going to turn it over to my much smarter colleague here, Dr. Barve, and I'm not one that's prone to exaggeration, but he is one of the leading scientists who's helping us come up with those strategies, and I think really going to help us take the next step. So I will turn it over to him now. Thank you all.
It is my pleasure and distinct honor to be here speaking to you and presenting the clinical translational research initiative that has started at Norton in this truly important area of investigation. At the very beginning, I would like to particularly thank Dr. Chris Shields, Dr. Maya for their vision and for getting all this initiated so that we can contribute and bring to you all some very meaningful solutions for prevention as well as treatment. First slide. This is just a quick overview from different phases of life, right? From fetal
You'll have to speak into the mic,
Oh,
unfortunately.
sorry.
I can hear you.
Yes. So as you can see, there are different stages and the spectrum of age from fetal, newborn, toddler, child, person, adult, and older adult. And throughout these stages of life, unfortunately, there are neurological diseases that manifest. Okay. So, for example, autism and ADHD in the earlier parts, epilepsy, seizures. But as you get into adulthood and older adults, we are looking at Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, and dementia. And there's a very interesting but under-recognized area which is called as perioperative cognitive decline. What we see that senior citizens, 65 and above, who undergo major surgeries, so there's a fair amount of incidence of delirium followed by cognitive decline. And this is a significant area that we are all trying to investigate under this realm of neurological diseases. One thing that is common, and this is evidence-based, that in all these stages of neurological diseases, a significant thing that is noted is that there is decreased microbial diversity. So gut microbiome that sits in all of us is an amazing entity. It has more than 10 times the cells than all the rest of the mammalian cells. Has more than 100,000 genetic information genes in them compared to our genes. So it's a huge organ that sits in us and continuously speaks to the system and also to the brain. And that recognition is now called as the gut system-brain axis. And it's a two-way street. So your gut speaks to the brain, and the brain in turn can then also send signals down that controls gut motility, which in turn again affects gut bacteria. Now I'll speak a little more, but once you have changes in this gut microbiome, what you see is a term called gut dysbiosis, where you can have bad bacteria growing and helpful, beneficial bacteria being decreased. So this then sets a kind of an insidious cycle, vicious cycle, which then translates into many changes into organ dysfunction and obviously changes in the brain. So this is a 10,000 feet overview. This is our hypothesis that pathogenic or disease-causing changes in the microbiome, gut-brain axis, plays a major role in the development of neurological diseases, including Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease and autism spectrum disorder. So as I explained earlier, throughout the various stages of life and various neurological disorders, a significant component is the microbiome, gut-brain axis. So what you're seeing here is your gut microbiome, and the microbial dysbiosis terminology is represented by the loss of diversity in your microbiome or type of bacteria, a gain in bad bacteria or pathobiomes, and a loss of beneficial bacteria. And all this is happening in response to life. So if you look at different components, like starts from the mode of delivery, cesarean section versus natural delivery, you have stress, whether your circadian rhythms are upset, whether you're sleeping appropriately or not, diet, what kind of diet you have, alcohol is part of that, if there is an alcohol use disorder, a component in an individual life. Clearly environment, pollution, particulate matter, polypharmacy, particularly in elderly patients, there we see a significant component of different kinds of medications that are taken. And then obviously aging. All these components affect the gut microbiome. In fact, now science is showing us that the gut microbiome truly integrates life experiences. So you can look at a person's microbiome and actually get a lot of insight into what are the lifestyle aspects that could be affecting this gut microbiome. There are some good things like the probiotics, exercise that can have positive influence. But once you start changing this equation here, it's like the train starts getting derailed. And the host-microbe interaction starts changing, and a lot of the microbial products or the microbiome or the bacteria itself can start leaking into the system through the breached intestinal wall. And this is, you must have heard the term probably called a leaky gut. So you have these bacteria, you have these microbial antigens that kind of seep into your system. And this is a smoldering fire that is starting and is chronically there. Once these products come into your system, your immune response is geared to respond to all these things. And this is where the inflammation starts, with diverse terminology for inflammation. Chronic, subchronic inflammation. This is where it starts driving change in the immune activation. You have oxidative stress, you have inflammatory mediators, all these things come into play. And this is like a feed-forward feedback system that is set in motion. Ultimately, in this context, what you're seeing is the blood-brain barrier has similar proteins that are there in the intestine. So once you see a breach in your intestinal epithelia, we also see changes in the blood-brain barrier, and the products that come from the system start reaching the brain, and what you see is neuroinflammation and neurodegeneration. And this is at the heart of driving these diseases like Alzheimer's disease, you have Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, Huntington's, ALS, and so on. So what are we doing at Norton is we are absolutely focusing our clinical research investigative methods to understanding the type of microglial dysbiosis that is happening in the context of these neurological diseases. And the hope is that once we define the specific features of gut microglial dysbiosis, this allows us potentially to develop probiotic interventions to address these dysbiotic features. We are also focusing on identifying the biomarkers. You just heard Dr. Cooper talking about biomarkers which emerge 10 to 15 years before a person has the diagnosis of Alzheimer's. So we are trying to get into that aspect and doing some detailed analysis of the gut the biomarkers that are connecting to the Alzheimer's or dementia type pathologies. We know from our preclinical model that we have these components actually drive these aspects, and obviously what we see down in the brain. Just as a positive note, we presented some of our work that is happening at Amsterdam. This was the biggest international conference in Alzheimer's disease. There were 10,000 plus delegates over there. And we presented our work, which was well noticed. This is a preclinical model in a mouse system where all the animals get Alzheimer's in about 18 months. And we started to address the gut issues, which we call gut homeostasis, starting 6 months. I'm very happy to state that we could completely preserve memory function in these animals versus animals so this work is under review and should be in press pretty shortly. And our hope, again, by the support of the Norton Hospitals and the Norton Foundation, we plan to bring this into people for clinical trials. But this is the exciting work that we have started with the hope that we can change this equation. There are also some exciting news on pharmacology or pharmacotherapy with lecanemab, which just got into approval. I think hopefully in the next few years we should be able to truly make a contribution with regards to preventative strategies if we can, so we don't even get there, but also there are also treatment strategies. Thank you very much.
We'll take Q&A now. I was reminded, listening to the doctor, that I'm not a scientist, but he explained it very well. If somebody who doesn't really understand the background of this stuff, I would explain to them in a way that can make sense. Any questions?
Yes, I'm Larry Sloan, and I have in my family indirectly a series of generations that have had Alzheimer's. So my conclusion from that will be that it's partially genetic, maybe. This was my mother's sister married a man whose mother had it, and he got it, and then all three of his children have gotten it. And there are grandchildren now, my grandchildren that are a generation below me. I don't know about that. But how does that nursing home now, but he thinks that he forestalled the onset of this by being a runner, so exercising and that sort of thing. So is diet as exercise possibly genetic as well? But the genetic seems like it would be a little more easily identifiable. That was really a question.
That was a 30-second question, stick with the rules, right?
I'll answer something, we'll see if it's the question you asked. But, there's no question that genetics plays a role. In almost all cases, it's not a simple role that genetics put us at higher or lower risk. So it's not directly caused, it's not necessarily destiny, but it affects our risk. And then it is also true that there are other things that can mitigate that risk, that can lower our risk. So good health care, keeping your blood pressure under control, getting adequate sleep, diet, exercise, education, all of those things certainly play a role. So being a runner probably did lower his risk. If we follow a Mediterranean or a mind or more of a plant-based diet, those things probably do lower our risk.
Thank you. Let me just add a little bit. So what is now known, just in the last maybe couple of years ago, that APOE4, which is a genetic predisposition for Alzheimer's, in a nutshell, the work is showing that you need a certain kind of microbiome to manifest the genetic predisposition. So these again preclinical studies showing that animals having APOE4 and tauopathies, if they're derived in the germ-free background, they don't get Alzheimer's. So they are showing this connection, and we are investigating right now that aspect of people who are genetically predisposed. If the microbiome issues are at risk, we may be able to at least extend the onset or mitigate the symptoms. But there is clearly evidence to show that just genetic predisposition is not the whole story. There are other lifestyle events that come together to manifest the disease, which means there is hope to prevent that.
Hello, my name is Patty Whiter, and I'm a psychologist and have worked with people on preventative health behaviors, quitting tobacco being the biggest one in Kentucky, but exercise. So I'm wondering if talking to people about their well-being and probiotics, if you had recommendations based on what you're giving the animals on how someone might approach finding evidence-based probiotics when there are so many things on the market that people will be trying to sell them.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So when you talk about dysbiosis, it's very contextual, which means if you compare even within neurological diseases, someone with a Parkinson's disorder versus Alzheimer's, there is dysbiosis, or type 2 diabetes, there is dysbiosis. But there are significant changes which are different that make the dysbiotic feature in those individuals. And that's the whole effort, is to identify specific features or signatures associated in our case with Alzheimer's disease. And once we have that, then what we need is an evidence-based approach. So we just have a big grant from NIH where we are using that and we are treating, in this case actually, patients with HIV who have neurocognitive decline. But we would define, and we are now basically crafted a probiotic by collaborating with a company which is a DuPont subsidiary to address that. And I think that's where it is. So usually it's not one glove fits all. They can go to a Costco or Walgreens and get it. It won't harm you, but the bottom line is to get answers. As you saw, that Travis is quite precise. I did not go into the genetics, the molecular, biochemical, and immunological changes that we track. So addressing those issues with a specific combination of probiotics becomes relevant. And I think that's where we are focusing our energies, so we can identify that and bring these solutions back to the community.
Thank you. Congratulations on your work. Ken Weathers. 2 quick questions related to this. My mother-in-law died of Alzheimer's and city's disease, so any progress is great. This is the first time I've ever heard anything about the dysbiosis as a cause. My question is, are you positive that this is the cause or there are many causes? And also, what progress is being made on early detection?
Yeah, so on early detection, this has been an interest of mine and a lot of people for a long time. We are clearly making progress clinically on being able to train physicians, advanced practice professionals to identify the cause and make a diagnosis clinically. We probably need to do a better job at educating people, the community, to come and be evaluated. It reminds me a little bit early in my career with stroke. When we finally had therapies that could reverse stroke, then we had to educate people that, well, now we have treatment, get to the hospital right away. It's going to be a little bit like that with Alzheimer's disease. That's probably the current state. In the not too distant state, we're going to be able to identify people that are at risk and then do biomarker studies, hopefully as simple as a blood test. And we'll be able to predict in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, this person is at risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. We're not there yet. The problem is the tests, they're getting close, but they're not quite ready to be utilized clinically. And there are many people that will have evidence of amyloid in the brain, for example, and never develop Alzheimer's disease. So we still have our work to do. So we're making progress. We are light years ahead of where we were even 5 years ago. Still have a lot of work to do on that.
So you're an excellent point. Dysbiosis, I won't say it's the only thing, but it's clearly one of the principal major drivers, looks like, based on the evidence. When you look at a disease like Alzheimer's, which is involving the entire system, I just showed you that little cartoon, there are many pressure points in the system. And clearly the gut microbiome is an extremely significant pressure point. The encouraging news is that if you address this pressure point, it looks like it has a domino effect on other pressure points. So although it's not the pressure point, it's clearly extremely important. The nice part is because these changes also, like the other biomarkers, happen 10 to 15 years before the manifestation of the disease. If you can identify that and start addressing that, either through lifestyle changes or through interventions like a pre-probiotic approach, there is hope. But to your answer to the specific question, it's not the only or the main, but it's one of the highly significant components of this whole process.
Hello, my name is Katie Joe, and I have a paralyzed stomach and a gastric pacemaker. And I was just wondering if there is a correlation between gut motility and any neurological diseases, and if there's any other devices that are out there in development.
So I have a colleague at U of L, Tom Abel, who treats gastroparesis, and then we are putting a gastric stimulator right now. I've done some collaborative work with him. To answer your question, those issues, gut motility is a significant component of changing the microbiome in a bad way. And that's why exercise, very lean, not sit around, helps the gut motility part. Because it's the retention time of the food in your gut dictates what kind of microflora it's going to support. So if you're mixing, first of all, the diet is not very healthy, on top of it resides in your system for a longer time, it breeds not good things. So yes, gut motility, and there are several non-Western or Eastern disciplines in medicine where they pay big attention to changing the gut motility. Well, you're right, that so there is a trial that's going to happen hopefully in the next couple of years where probiotics will be given to patients with gastroparesis and a gastric stimulator to see. There are cognitive assessments that are not done that frequently, but there are issues with cognition and memory, and then it only gets worse with age. So if it's addressed appropriately, I think it will be helpful.
Good afternoon, Walt Kuno here. Usually like to have something light to say, but this is a pretty serious subject. Kemp talked about his mother-in-law. My mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2013-ish. Oh, she died then. She had it for 7 years. And I can remember going to the hospital with her, and they asked her to draw a clock and put 11 o'clock on the round face. And when she couldn't do it, everybody in the room it was just like the worst thing ever. And then her last 3 years, she was uncommunicative. So I thank you for what you're doing, because it is an insidious, awful, horrible thing to happen. I do have a question. I just had a friend of mine, a college buddy, 62 years old, just got diagnosed with ALS. And I know that's another just terrible, terrible, I mean, we all say a death sentence. But I think I just heard you that there's some hope, and he's going to Cedars-Sinai in Los Angeles because that's where he lives. But can you give us some enlightenment on what's going on in the ALS? Because it looks like that's one of the places that is getting worked on too. Thank you, and thank you for your work. It's important. It's proud to have this work done here in Louisville.
Thank you. So ALS is it's an awful neurodegenerative illness. Most often we don't associate ALS with dementia. It can be associated with dementia, not necessarily Alzheimer's disease, but we most often think of it as a degeneration of our motor nerves, our nerves that are telling our muscles what to do, so there's a progressive weakness. On the one hand, I have to admit this is still an awful, incurable illness. I will also say the pace of research and progress has picked up somewhat dramatically in the last few years. So there are now a number of treatments that are available clinically. They are not cures, but they are treatments that are available. And there is some really exciting work being done in terms of genetic treatment for this. Some people with ALS have, we can identify a single gene that we think is related to or responsible for this, and people are targeting that gene. And then there's hope that that might apply to even people without that specific genetic mutation. So there's a lot of work done. I'm not going to pretend I'm an ALS expert, but there's a lot of work being done. I recently heard, I think I got this right, a neurologist interviewed who himself has ALS, and he commented himself as he's dealing with this disease that this is the best time possible to have ALS. I know that sounds a little odd, but his point was clear. They're making progress, and it sounds like your friend at least is going to an outstanding institution.
And I just want to put another plug in. So University of Louisville has its Parkinson and Movement Disorder Clinic, and that's just another fabulous resource we have here in town. For those of y'all that don't know, I've had benign tremors. It's not any of Parkinson or anything else. But I went to the University of Louisville Parkinson and Disorder Clinic and got plopped a drug on top of another drug. And my hands don't shake anymore. This one's a little bit because I'm a little bit nervous. But this is crazy what can happen.
Dr. Secretary, thank you. My name is Tracy Holloway for your outstanding work and the difference it's making in so many lives. I didn't keep count, but I think I heard the word probiotics at least a dozen times. What would you recommend we do to increase probiotics? Should we be taking pills? Should we be eating certain things? How do we get it?
For general health, exercise is an extremely important component. Eating fiber is extremely important. And the reason is the friendly bacteria, which I pointed out that use beneficial bacteria, they actually require, because they use the insoluble fiber as a fermentation source and grow. So the more greens you eat in your diet, more exercise you do, that's going to support healthy bacteria. Sleep is another very important component, which controls your circadian rhythm. So these are the lifestyle things that work with your microbiome. But we know it's difficult to have lifestyle changes. We would like to swallow a pill to fix the problem. Unfortunately, in this case, it's a little bit different. We are trying to get to that, but again, as I said, the DIS bias is contextual, which means if for general health, if we have to say something, what should we take? That's one question for probiotics. Someone says, I have a propensity, I'm afraid that, there's familial history, Alzheimer's, what can I do so I don't get there? That's a separate. So as I said, there's DIS biases and then there's DIS biases. And by that token, there are probiotics and then there are probiotics. So I think in the general sense, a good probiotic is something that is not just one type of bacteria or two, but like a compendium of at least 20 to 15. An important part to understand is that partly is based on evidence that instead of taking encapsulated, freeze-dried probiotic, it's good to have a natural living probiotic. It could be through yogurts, kefir, kombucha, there are many possibilities that you have. A probiotic, first of all, has to not only just get into you, but be able to colonize your bacteria, your gut, so it can proliferate. And it's getting out-competed by the diet flora. So that's something that you have to have lifestyle changes to help the probiotic that you're taking, which you're applying. But for general health, anything that is fermented dairy has been shown. There are papers. There's a thing called kefir that works for 20 to 15 strains of live bacteria. These are freeze-dried capsules. We also get tablets of probiotics. But they usually don't come back to life in the gut. That's a problem. They are sloughed off in the morning. So you want to have probiotics which are alive. And the right part is you take it first thing in the morning and not consume anything about 30 minutes after that. So allow that bacteria to get into the system and get a foothold. That's but as I said, that's a very general answer for a general thing for good health. What we are doing is trying to do something very specific so we can address how we can truly impede this development that leads you to Alzheimer's. That's the thing.
Thank you all for being here. This has been fabulous. I'm Julie Schmidt, and I have a kind of a two-part question. First, does B12 have anything to do with Alzheimer's and staving it off at all, or B12?
So, if someone has a B12 deficiency, that is a cause for memory loss separate from Alzheimer's disease. So, it is routine to always check for that. People have speculated, even if you have a normal B12, would taking B12 be helpful? Not clear that it would be. Certainly not going to hurt you. So I would say not a direct link to Alzheimer's disease, but a cause for memory loss and something that we will always rule out.
And my other question is, I saw something on news, I guess yesterday, about long hauler COVID. Do you see that interfering or connecting with Alzheimer's?
Well, that's a really difficult one. So it is thought that COVID is going to increase our incidence of Alzheimer's disease or dementia broadly across the world. And with previous pandemics, we see an uptick in dementia. So there is likely to be a relationship there. Then beyond that, it becomes extremely fuzzy. So whether long COVID is related to that directly, separately, I have to admit, I don't know, and I don't know that it is known yet. So there is a concern, but I don't think we have all those answers yet.
Thank you very much.
Just a quick addition, so in terms of numbers, they have found a 17% increase in Alzheimer's incidence post-pandemic.
Wow.
And so that's significant. We are starting a pilot project at Norton to look at people post-COVID. So the plan is to screen cognition and the gut microbiome. It is known that the COVID infection significantly changes your gut microbiome in a big way. Any viral infection does, but COVID certainly does. And there was one study that was published, which was done in Italy in 2020. They had 11 blocks in Rome where they gave probiotics to that population, and 11 blocks obviously received standard of care. And the data is amazing that the 11 blocks, that population that received probiotics, there was significant reduction in mortality and morbidity versus not. So we are starting to investigate that as a component. We will also be taking that into account in the memory clinic and the movement disorder clinic, by the way, for Parkinson's, that's at Norton, to keep that as an essential foundation in mind. But yes, I think COVID is doing something. It needs to be investigated and addressed.
Thank you very much.
That was phenomenal. Well, one quick question. There was a drug, I believe, that was approved related to Alzheimer's treatment for Medicare. Is that, how meaningful is that? Where was it? Is that what we were talking about?
Yeah, so that was lecanemab. It got full approval early July, and it is significant in my opinion. There's some disagreement over that. It slows the progression by about 30%, so it's not 100%, but I think that is clearly an important first step.
One more assignment here, guys. I'm totally good. We have a lottery, and whoever gets this gets a free ticket to the wine swap at my wife's Sunny in my house on November 10th. It might be too much. Yeah. And the last 4 days of the last 4 digits of 9590.
Hey, Jerry, I'll email you.
Thanks, somebody with you. That was just a fantastic discussion. I really appreciate that, gentlemen. Next week, Christina Lee Brown, known as Christy Brown, from the co-founder of the Environmental Institute, as well as many other things we'll talk about next week. She's going to talk about a new vision of helping Hal River, and we're actually planning to work as a club in helping on that project. Also, any guests to board, please stop by and see Craig Sherman. Craig will be over the table that says one is Rotary. So just after the meeting, we'll go to the second after the meeting, go and learn more about what our work is all about, and then we'll join over another time. Thank you.